certain horror villains almost everyone can recognise. I mean, even your gran knows who good old Fred Krueger is, and the amount of sultry Pennywises out and about on Halloween speaks for itself. Get it, sexy clown people? I love your work. But as much as Jason Voorhees or Michael Myers or that weird-looking fella with the top hat have their looks down and their respect earned, now it's time to shine a light on some of the ones who, for various reasons, slipped off of the pop culture radar. Or worse, never really caused a blip in the first place. These poor losers have been overshadowed by the aforementioned big names, or because the movies they feature in never reached the audience they deserve, or they got a little bit of the limelight and were dropped like hot potatoes as soon as a bigger feature came out straight after. Although horror fans may recognise many of the figures here, you have got to admit, they deserved way more than their lot. I am what culture's own underrated baddie, Ash, and these are the 10 most underrated horror movie villains. 10. Captain Waffner, Overlord. What could be more terrifying than a Nazi? Well, how about you try a chemically enhanced Nazi zombie with 10 times the strength of an average man and the ability to regenerate almost any wound? Yeah, how about those apples? Appearing in 2018's action-packed Overlord, Captain Waffner is not just a man taking orders. Waffner relishes his job of keeping the locals in line whilst evil genius Dr. Schmidt conducts experiments on their loved ones and neighbours, resulting in some abhorrent creations roaming underneath a local church, of all places. With a uniquely grotesque look achieved through impressive CGI and a gleefully menacing presence, the villain raises the stakes admirably, and the final showdown is a brutal gore-fest. Actor Pilu Asbæk may have been criticised for his pantomimish turn in Game of Thrones, but this snarling villain is perfectly over the top. 9. The ROBESONS, the people under the stairs. Let's all be real here, The People Under the Stairs is underrated all over, not just in its antagonists. Wes Craven's subversive and underrated movie provides not one baddie, but two, in the form of this rather twisted couple. Although they're able to maintain a veneer of politeness, the Robesons are a far cry from normalcy or even sanity. Mommy and Daddy are actually brother and sister, descended from a long line of inbreeding. Daddy is a shotgun-toting, gimp-suit-wearing maniac, and Mommy is a cruel homemaker who likes to crochet lovely phrases like "children should be seen and not heard" for her booby-trapped house holding a legion of deformed boys imprisoned in the basement. Intended as a satirical commentary on the conservative values of a Reagan-era America, the Robesons are actually a timeless reminder that sometimes the worst villains are hiding in plain sight, and their secrets are lurking behind closed doors. 8. Sebastian Cain, Hollow Man. In Paul Verhoeven's violent reimagining of the classic H.G. Wells story, brilliant scientist Sebastian Cain develops a way to turn living tissue invisible. And once Cain begins to experience life as an invisible man, he finds that the, unseen benefits, pun intended, outweigh the negatives. And soon he'll stop at nothing to stay that way. Much like Captain Waffner, Bacon's Crane wasn't all that nice of a guy to begin with. He's an egotist who starts small with lying to his colleagues and creepily peeping on his neighbour. And all of this plants the seeds for what comes when Cain is unleashed from the constraints of visibility. Perhaps it's the sheer amoral nastiness of the Hollow Man's antagonists which has held the movie back from achieving cult status. Where some monsters might spout the occasional cheesy pun and wink at the camera to remind us all it is just a bit of fun, we're afforded no such relief from Cain, and rightly so. He had a small moment, but really, Hollow Man deserves far more plaudits than what he was given. 7. Officer Matt Cordell, Maniac Cop Trilogy. Set up for a crime he didn't commit and subsequently murdered in prison, hero cop Matt Cordell returned from the dead 3 times to wreak havoc on the city he once swore to protect. By 1988, the slasher genre was already considered stale by some, but Larry Cohen's creation is an inspired twist on the formula. One of the more unique aspects separating Cordell from his peers is a willingness to use firearms and employ vehicular assault to rack up his kill count. This way, he's able to dish out Terminator levels of carnage when he chooses to, although he's not adverse to the old stalk and slash routine when the situation arises. He's even got a fair consistency to his wounds and scars throughout all 3 installments. And really, it's this kind of little detail that made his reign of terror one that should have lasted the ages. Go show old Cordell some love. 6. Herbert West, RE-ANIMATOR Trilogy. Dr. West is obsessed with discovering the secrets of life and death, and his experimental serum can bring people back from the dead, with horrifying results. In every case, West's subjects tend to display manic aggression, murderous impulses, enhanced strength, and are able to withstand levels of physical trauma far beyond the average person. Although his experiments nearly always end in bloody disaster, West is undaunted and continues his work across foreign battlefields and even whilst incarcerated for his crimes. He doesn't mind getting his hands dirty either. He has a way with a bone saw and a shovel, and won't shy away from a fight when his arch-rival, the decapitated and resurrected Dr. Hill, raises an army of lobotomized zombies to do his bidding. West's goal might be somewhat understandable, but his ruthless, single-minded pursuit of it at the risk of his friends, colleagues, and even pets marks him as a true villain. Bad guys don't always know that they're the bad guy, and West is a prime example of that. 5. The JINN, WISHMASTER. Accidentally unleashed upon a then present-day America, this demonic genie sets about world domination, with resistance only from the man who freed him. The JINN is an almost dual role for the charismatic Andrew Divoff, since he is skin-crawlingly slimy yet suave in human form, and when working under the extensive demon makeup and prosthetics, he is outright menacing. And of course, whichever shape he's in, it is always amusing to see how he'll interpret an innocuously phrased wish to fit his wicked agenda. Wishmaster, underrated as it is, features a number of established horror icons, from Robert Englund to Kane Hodder to Tony Todd, all serving to raise this new monster on their shoulders. Sadly, it didn't reach the popularity enjoyed by other legends of the time, with some fans actually taking umbrage over the way he dispatched the men who played Freddy, Jason, and Candyman, as if it was some form of insult. I guess if you want to make friends, don't kill their idols in cold blood, then. 4. Julia Cotton, HELLRAISER and HELLBOUND, HELLRAISER 2. Forget Pinhead, this wicked stepmother is the real big bad in the first 2 installments of the franchise. When her long-lost love Frank comes back from the grave skinless and largely fleshless, it doesn't take much to convince Julia to help him, despite being married to his brother Larry. Before you can say, "Come to daddy," she is luring lonely businessmen to the attic for Frank to feed upon. Although marriage to Larry is clearly no picnic, Clive Barker never allows us to sympathise with the aloof yet desperate Julia, whose loyalty for Frank never comes off as more than lust and a desire to escape the boredom of a situation. Her eventual demise at Frank's hand is as cruel as it is satisfying, and it's entertaining to see how that affects their relationship in the Hellset sequel. Original plans were for Julia to be the series' antagonist, and it shows in both of her appearances. But the popularity of Pinhead encouraged the filmmakers to elevate him from the neutral arbiter of the first installment and semi-heroic victim of the second to the headline horror icon he still is today. Don't worry though, Julia, we still remember you. 3. Sam, Trick or Treat. Considering what this guy has lurking under his burlap sack, Sam is not one you want to be messing with come any Halloween. What looks like a little boy but actually turns out to be a pumpkin-headed seasonal spirit intent on upholding the traditions of Halloween, Trick or Treat delivers on its title with horror treats and Sam's revelationary tricks in this anthology classic. For some reason, despite embodying the best of a whole collection of stories on Halloween night that encompass everything from one woman's first time to ghostly apparitions rising from urban legends, Trick or Treat remains annoyingly low on mainstream horror radars, only getting attention when it comes to its titular time of year. Either way, Sam is a force to be reckoned with, and deserves his shout-out more than just 1 month a year. This one's for you bulbous-headed, lovable monster. 2. Norman Bates, Psycho. Wait, what? He can't be on this list. Knife-wielding schizophrenic Norman is the undisputed daddy of the cinematic slasher, but let's be honest here, he seems to have been overshadowed by his more colourful offspring. Perhaps it's his unassuming persona, the very aspect which made that final reveal of his true nature so shocking back in 1960. Or perhaps it's because of all the famous horror villains, he's the closest to reality. Many cinematic killers have been based on the man with an Etsy account for body parts and literal murderer, Ed Gein, but Norman was the first and arguably most accurate, even more than many so-called biopics about the man. In the film, he is crafted into a tragic and largely sympathetic character. He struggles against his illness and murderous impulses and would genuinely prefer a quiet, normal life, if only his mother would let him have one. He's expertly created and often looked back on with fondness, but really, he should be far higher in the Hall of Fame for horror movie monsters than any of those that came after him. Yes, he's rated, but is it really worthy of what he did for the genre? Absolutely not. 1. Pamela Voorhees, Friday the 13th, 1980. Overshadowed by her hulking hockey-masked son, Jason, many forget that Mrs. Voorhees was the original Friday the 13th killer. From a benign, neighborly introduction to her warm smile and cozy woolen sweater, you would never guess that she was responsible for the brutal murders of the first installment in the franchise. However, it does not take long for the cracks to show, revealing an unhinged personality that quickly turns on final girl Alice, commencing a deadly battle of wits and improvised weaponry. We learn that Pamela is motivated to avenge her son's accidental death and that she holds all Crystal Lake counselors, past and present, responsible for her loss. And oh boy, is she working some anger out on those that return to her son's site of death. Mute Jason would be the one to carry the torch in the sequels, having clearly inherited his mother's bloodlust and flair for creative killing, leaving poor old Pamela relegated to the sidelines as he took on the Friday the 13th mantle. Considering how supernatural Jason became as the series went on, the filmmakers missed a trick by not bringing Pamela back at least once. That much she deserved.